What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, OTB Nation? Welcome in to episode number 246 of the allegedly award-nominated number 9 NCAA and Shrek-ranked words. We're doing this on full rest, and I can't even speak. And of course, viewable on YouTube, Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. It's KB and Deej. I'm having Wi-Fi issues. I don't know why. Nobody else is in my house right now, and it's been a mess. I don't know why, but here we are. We got big things to talk about on this episode. Most importantly, one of the bigger trades to kick off this PLL offseason. We've got... I do have a question that just popped in my head, too, that I'm curious about how that would work. We'll get into it when we talk about the trade. We got the TSN Game of the Week schedule. Our boy Stephen McAvoy wrote a very interesting NIL article about lacrosse and the future of it that we got featured in, so that's very exciting. We'll talk about that as well. But before we get started, make sure you guys are following us on the socials. We put a challenge out there for the people, and nobody has come through. I know. Our company has been on a month-long bender of Philly sports, but that doesn't mean lacrosse is going anywhere, and just because it's the off-season, you can't follow us. Follow us at OTB LaxPod on Twitter, on Instagram. Make sure you follow DJ on Twitter at SCS_NextGreat. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Follow the network at Underground PHI. We got a big-ass giveaway going on right now that ends as soon as the World Series is over, so you don't want to miss that. DJ, why are you laughing at me?
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at myself.
Oh, no.
I just had an epiphany. That 311 really spells out K-Bizzle 11.
Yes. Shout out AOL Instant Messenger.
You can go on.
No, we got to pause right here. It's taken you a year and a half to realize that.
Dog, I just thought it was 311, bro. I didn't put the 3 as an E for so
long.
Like,
I'm old, now. I know.
Until now. It's more
that
of
was
my
a thing. That was a thing in the early 2000s.
It's still a thing. Like, it's just my fault, not yours. I'm just, like, not smart sometimes.
Oh, it's hilarious. I know. I wish I could just have my damn name as my Twitter handle, but
I mean,
what are you going to do?
I think I'm going to do that.
You should.
Stay tuned.
Da-na-na, da-na-na. But big-ass giveaway going on at Underground PHI. Dude, we've gained like 300 followers from that giveaway alone. It's insane. Shout out to Josh Reynolds. Shout out to Dewani. We got huge things going on over there. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Y'all already know who the best goddamn lacrosse podcast is. The best damn independent lacrosse podcast out there. Support us. Leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Subscribe. Holidays are coming up. You know, DJ's favorite holidays coming up. When you get around that Thanksgiving table, tell everyone, open their phones, subscribe to the podcast, unsubscribe, resubscribe, do it like all throughout dinner. Play with the algorithm. It gets us on the charts. That would be massive. But yeah, tell everybody at your Thanksgiving dinner table, yo, whip out your phones and subscribe to Outside the Box right now. Subscribe on Apple and Spotify. Subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, where you get full video episodes of OTB and all of your favorite Underground Sports Philadelphia podcasts. We're on that road to 1K Gauntlet Challenge. Huge things will happen once we get to 1K. Deej, right now we are at 293 subscribers. because part of the giveaway we're doing for the network, you get an extra entry if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. So we've gone from 269 to 293 in a matter of days. So get us to 300. That would be huge. I think if we get to 300, we'll announce our secret project we have planned for about a month from now. Seems fair. 300 and 1,450 Twitter followers, which is 4 more. It's a very cool secret project we've been working on. So if you want it, follow and subscribe. Smash that like button. Ring the bell icon. Comment down below your thoughts on the big PLL trade we're about to get into, your thoughts on the TSN Game of the Week schedule, your thoughts on Lacrosse and NIL, a whole bunch of stuff. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can just type in now. I don't know if I mentioned this on last week's episode, if it was happened yet. YouTube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia brings you right to our channel. Thank you, YouTube. Also, just want to shout out the fans of Underground. We had an impersonating Twitter account, apparently, this morning, DMing our followers that they had won our giveaway and sending suspicious links. I thought the whole point of Elon buying Twitter was that he was going to get rid of the bots. Guess that's not true, but shout out to the 8 or 9 people that DM'd us this morning to say that somebody was impersonating us. They followed OTB, and when I clicked on it, I saw it was _underground with a 0 PHI. Yeah. And when I clicked on it, when I woke up this morning, the account had already been suspended. So shout out to the people who reported that. It means a lot to us. I guess that means we've made it because somebody made a fake account about our company.
And if I find you, it's OV.
He's going to Liam Neeson your ass. Also, Outside the Box is brought to you by our friends at PHI Apparel Co. They're the best in the game. There's truly not a better apparel partner we could have found. And Deej, I got a text this morning. I got to text our boy Tyler back after this episode. Podcast shirt logos, podcast logo shirts, will be available hopefully sometime next week. Just in time for Black Friday. So get ready, save your pennies, go dig in your couches, because OTB merch is going to be available very soon. And PHI Apparel Company is our proud merch partner, you guys. They provide unique designs and high-quality clothing for the great fans of Philadelphia and Lacrosse. And with their original designs for all, there's no doubt you'll stand out in the crowd. You guys can use our code UNDERGROUND for 10% off any apparel when you shop online at phiapparel.co. That's phiapparel.co. And use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off your order. Deej, let's get into it because we had somewhat breaking news last night. We wanted to sit on it to make sure it was good. Not that we don't trust Ty Zanders. He's one of the best in the game with the breaking news and everything, but we wanted that official. We wanted some statements. We're going to pull a little bit from Sarah Griffin's article, friend of the program. Shout out to Sarah. Hit the music. Da-na-na, da-na-na. Matt Kavanagh traded to Cannons in exchange for John Piatelli and Matt Rahill. Something I have talked about. I think I was more on board with this happening earlier in the season than DJ was at first. I said it was time to trade Cav. I thought with the Redwoods, and I think Ben Rubior might have said this in one of the press conferences when he said, you look at all the teams in the league, or it might have been Pseudo, one of the two. When you look at all the teams in the league who have gotten younger over the past couple of years, they've gotten better. You look at Atlas, you look at Chrome, you look at the Archers infusing young talent this season. Redwoods have kind of been behind the 8 ball in terms of adding young talent consistently into the lineup outside of TD, Ryder in year 1, and Timmy Troutner in year 1.
Charlie B.
And Charlie Bertrand, yes. Those are the 4 that have come in and been successful young players who get quality playing time for this team. And Charlie was really more so this year than last year.
And Cohen, but I mean, it was an immediate need. So
Yeah, he was going to slide right in and,
yeah.
play almost immediately. But you look at some of the other teams where last year for Atlas, you had Jake Caraway coming in kind of out of nowhere and having a stellar season. Like, not that he wasn't a bad player in college, but like nobody really expected him to come in, I think, and produce at that level that quickly is what I'm trying to say there, especially when they drafted Jeff Teat.
It's a shame that he's sitting.
Go get it. Free Caraway. Free Caraway. Hashtag free Caraway.
I like that. Hashtag free Caraway.
Free Caraway, free Romar.
But yeah, no, I was not necessary. I was giving him the benefit of the doubt.
I said week 2 he needed to go find Jameis Winston's LASIK surgeon.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, it's 2 weeks.
And I love Cav. That's all out of love.
I was just like, give him some time, let him warm up, let him get into it. But like, he progressively got worse throughout the year, in my opinion. Some people may not believe it, but like, I think he progressively got worse. And I was like, dude, like, all right, I what was it, Boston? I went up to Nat and who was with
McFarland.
him? And McFarland, yeah. And I went. So I listed off quite a few players.
Oh yeah.
Won't name drop, but I did drop Cav's name, which
yeah.
And
we named drop Caraway too.
Yeah, and Caraway since he's already been brought up. McFarland's eyes lit up for one. He was ecstatic with it. And Nat kind of almost shut it down. He was like, yeah, we're working on something there.
He's like, you might be onto something, but not the right something.
Yeah. He's like, there's something there, but I don't know if it's that.
McFarland was like, he gets it.
Yeah, he was like, hey, you want to come? Can I coach for you? He was all for it. So, like, at the end of the season, I was just about fed up with him. And that's coming from a guy who watches a lot of Notre Dame lacrosse because I live in the Midwest. There isn't a ton of lacrosse up here. So that's when you think about D1 lacrosse, it's as good as it gets. Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State. Like, that's about as far as I'm traveling too. Those are all Ohio State's far too. So I don't just go to any game there. But, so I'm used to seeing Kavanagh play at a high level. This is not that. I was really excited to see what they were going to do. And I think this trade works out. I told you, like, off pod, like 1,000,000 times over for the Redwoods than it does for the Cannons.
Yeah, I texted you this morning. I said, the more I look at this and the more I went into reading the quotes from Sarah's article, which we'll pull some stuff from just for quotes from Coach Quirk and Nat, the more I like this trade for the Redwoods. And not that I don't like it for the Cannons. It's just one of those things that it's more so a trade for the Cannons that you have to see it in live action before you can kind of assess it. This for Redwoods, I think we'll start with them getting Piatelli and Rahill. We were both kind of shocked that throughout the season, with so much turnover and so many guys in and out of this lineup on the offensive side of the ball for Cannons, that Piatelli never cracked a roster. He was just kind of sitting there chilling, never played in a game for the Cannons. Went undrafted, and there's a quote in here that kind of caught me by surprise a little bit from Nat that Sarah put in her article. We'll link this article in the YouTube and show notes description as well for everybody in case you haven't read it, which if you don't follow Sarah or the PLL on Twitter and haven't seen this, you live under a rock. Quote from Nat: Rob and I and my staff, we talked about it last year during the draft, and we were shocked he wasn't picked up in terms of Piatelli. You look at some of the goals he scored in college and how he did it. I got really excited. In college, he averaged 3.56 goals per game in 2022, which led all of NCAA for Cornell. Saying that he's going to have the opportunity to compete for the spot on the right side with Ryan Lee and Joe Robertson. Me personally, I think he's ahead of Joe Robertson right now, just in terms of skill set and what he could potentially bring, and Rob being familiar with his game too. I think it works really well. Obviously, you and I are big Ryan Lee stands, so we want to see Ryan Lee back in the lineup healthy for this team, because when he was in there for those few games that we saw him before he got injured, in in 2021, him and Rob together was like, it was the smoothest we've seen Rob play in forever. And that was like the best, I think you and I agree that he played in 2021 was when Rob and Ryan Lee were together. And then this year he obviously came out and was like just a pure alpha male and dominated like vintage RP3. But I think I would rank those guys in terms of like who I'd want to see out there. Ryan Lee, Piatelli, Joe Robertson. That's nothing against Joe Robertson. I just think Piatelli's skill sets in this offense would work really well with Rob, with Ryder, and with this midfield.
And that's what I would want to see. But what I think the order will be is Ryan Lee, Joe Robertson, Piatelli.
Agreed.
Because Piatelli is more versatile in terms of moving up top and down low. He can play a little bit of midfield and he can push those guys, but he also could flip to the other side and push Ryder. I think that's a big thing with Piatelli is he could take Ryder's spot and he's going to force Ryder to be the player he needs to be because there is someone behind him that can play as good as him and do the things that he does. So I think Piatelli has a lot more fluidity within the offense of where he can play versus Joe Robertson and Ryan Lee. They're kind of like that right side spot is like them. That's what they're there for. Whereas Piatelli can move around and offer different things to this offense. And I mean, I can't wait to touch on Ray Hill in a minute. That's going to be exciting. But
we'll get to him in a minute. I think too with Ryder now, I think this is only going to make him better because now, one, you don't have, not that Ryder is typically the person who listens to the outside noise either, having gotten to know Ryder over the last 4 years. Like, he's very locked in when he is playing, like, and when he's off the field, he's just a big goofball and doesn't give a shit what you say. I think, though, now that the constant Ryder and Cav are just clones of each other talk is gone, it's going to help Ryder. And I think this offense is going to be so much better now. Not that it was bad, you know, for the first, you know, 2 full seasons and bubble season with Cav. But as the years have gone on, I think you agree with me too, the offense seemed very just like redundant and like very like it kind of ran into each other like constantly and just was like stagnant. And you needed something fresh, and Redwoods just didn't have anything truly to like revitalize it. So I think that's going to help Redwoods in a big way, where now the offense can kind of get a little more creativity into it.
Yeah, I think this allows for Ryder and John to kind of use their creativity. They're some of the most creative and elusive attackmen when it comes to their size and stick skills. So they're going to be able to use that a lot. But it also just it challenges the way the team needs to run offensively because they still don't necessarily have a left-hand attackman, which worries me. But it also forces them to kind of play Ryan Lee on that inside role because you can't really have 2 outside righties. Like you have to have one on the inside then. So if they're going to do that, that's fine. But if not, it kind of challenges them to step away from a traditional set, and they're going to have to go to like a 2 set like chaos, or they're going to have to go to like just a very open set if you're going to run 6 right-handed guys, or, you know, not have a left-handed attackman. That's like a big deal.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know, I'm excited to just see Piatelli on the field. You know, I think a guy like that with the goal-scoring prowess he has deserves to at least crack a game day roster once. So again,
I mean, they're going to expand, or at least I think they are.
Same.
So yeah, I think he'll make it.
This is all just us speculating in our heads.
Yeah. I mean, if they expand, then he definitely makes game day roster.
Yeah.
No question.
And I think him working with somebody like Rob in practice now and potentially on a game day, being able to play with him is going to do wonders for his game, being that they're both are Cornell products, being that Rob clearly is putting insight into, you know, some potential decision making, which kind of surprised me a little bit, where not that, you know, it's a bad thing. It's just like, okay, like this is where this Redwoods team is right now, and it's still Rob Pennell's team, and they are going to confide in him for franchise decision moves for the foreseeable future, and I'm totally cool with that. And, I think that gives a little bit clearer of a look into who this coaching staff really wanted to put the keys into the hands of when you're talking about putting this Redwoods team moving forward. And I think that's another reason Cav got traded.
I think that's a big part of why Cav got traded. Is he just wasn't someone this team could count on to be a leader, and wasn't someone this team could count on to come through, which at one point he was. And those were some of the best years for the Redwoods. But now, like, it kind of just sucks to see, like, that's where it ended up being. But, like, it happens in all sports with all kinds of players. Like, that's just life. Guys enter different parts of their careers, and their personalities and stuff changes because, how they feel about their results and things. I mean, that's just a part of sports. That's not even just a professional thing. That's, you can look all the way down to like high school and middle school and see that kind of stuff going on. So it's not anything unusual. But I am interested to see, bringing up that point, who else may possibly get traded, and for the same reason, like, just they don't really fit into the scheme moving forward.
And let's also not forget the biggest reason that Cav got traded. He's on an expiring contract. Free agency is looming. Cannons are now going to have to pay him to keep him on the roster. And that's the biggest reason, And I think that also gives you some insight onto the offseason decision-making for this Redwoods staff, and for Nat as he puts his GM hat on. I'm going to go flat out and say this right now, Deej. Cav getting traded means Miles Jones is back with Redwoods. Those were the two big expiring contracts, and now you move off of one. I think Miles is back on a 1-year deal at the very least.
It's a bold statement.
I'm gonna put it out there right now. You heard it
November
4th. November 4th from me.
That's a bold statement because we know Nat. That's why I say that's a bold statement. Is
November 4th,
Nat
2022, from me to you.
He could very well move the both of them.
Totally. But I think this move, I'm going to say, I think it almost guarantees Miles Jones will be back in a Redwoods uniform.
I mean, I don't mind it.
Neither do I. But I think that was like the watch that if you're a Redwoods fan or just a fan of the league, you were on the watch for Redwoods to see which one of those two big name expiring contract guys got traded. And I think because it was Cav, I think it's an easier route to re-sign Miles than it would have been to re-sign Cav.
Yes. But as much as I love Miles, do you trade him this year? Because he's about to have a kid. So yes, he's getting dad strength, but a kid's a lot, especially at a young age. It does change your focus a little bit. And do you risk him having like another so-so year that could potentially like quote unquote ruin his work? Like, think about what you can get from Miles right now versus what you could possibly get from him next year or the year after if he keeps playing in the trend he's playing now. Obviously, if he plays better, you talk about keeping him, or you can move him for something very good.
Which is why I say 1-year deal makes the most sense too, because then you give him another incentive to say, hey, you're truly in a contract year.
Yeah, but if he has a bad year, what can you get for him?
You're right. Like that's a risk you play.
Unless they're going to let him go in free agency, but then that's wild to let a player that good. Because once again, we're talking more of a Cav scenario now where like you can get something just off the name. Yeah. Even if he's not playing at his best, you can get something because he's Miles Jones. So like to let him go in free agency is wild because he's Miles Jones. So like I couldn't imagine them letting that happen. So like that's why like is this like, that's why I think they possibly move him this year because there's so many factors going into this next year that could like ruin it. But then again, a 1-year deal is not a bad option. But I don't know if that midfield stays together. There's a lot
And
of
I think
guys.
if you're on a 1-year deal too, and it seems off, Nat is the first one we know will make an in-season trade with somebody, and somebody will trade for Miles Jones on a 1-year deal in season, banking on, okay, on this end, it's an expiring deal, but on this end, if we trade for this guy and he can somehow regain form in a new scenario, we can go to the playoffs and we have Miles Jones on our roster.
Okay, but who other than the Cannons is possibly trading for Miles right now, honestly? Because you look at the Archers, they have Trey LeClaire, Matt Moore, and Tom Schreiber. You look at the Whips, they still have Brad Smith and Chaney.
Which I don't think Nat would make a trade like that to trade
With Stags, anyway.
Miles to the Whips.
Yeah.
Especially after he fleeced them for Jules.
Yeah, exactly. And
Chrome?
That's maybe
Chrome's
the only
interesting.
one. Who do they take, though? Heacock?
I don't hate that. Like, if that's a scenario, like, and I love Miles. Miles is our dog.
I mean, if that's the scenario, I'm taking that now.
But
Heacock hasn't really been in their offense. He's kind of faded in and out. They keep running him up top. This is a good opportunity for us to take a solidly left-handed player and throw him in at attack and then rotate the rest of our offense so we have a balanced attack.
who's their other midfielder? It's Heacock, Jackson, and
Justin Anderson.
yes. That's the one that
And
would
Miles
make
can
sense.
fit. He can fit right in with that line. He would just take Heacock's spot, and he's more of a 2-point threat. He can still dodge. He has nice vision.
I'm
Like,
still
I
pretty
think-
high on Miles right now.
I mean, of course, I'm not high on Miles, but like after he had last year, not this past season, but the season before that was absolutely phenomenal for Miles. But then you look at the year before that, he was a little shaky, which was his first year in the Woods, which was understandable.
And it was
like,
a bubble.
yeah, and he had an okay year with Chaos first year, which is why I think he ended up getting traded. Like he didn't have the year that Chaos thought he was going to have for them. And then you look at this past season, he struggled from time to time. So it's like, is he starting to downtrend? Because I mean, he's been playing for a while. He started with the Bayhawks, and I think he did a little bit of box before things really picked up.
He's 29. He's I would say 29, you're still in your prime, or like, for some players, like you're just hitting your prime.
But is he?
I think so.
If we look at his production, he's at that point in his prime where it could literally go either way, and that's scary. Like he could project up or he could project down, in my opinion, just from what I've seen from him. Like looking at his early years with the Bayhawks with Lyle, and then looking at his time in the PLL, like that transition and the merger, like didn't do him the best.
I mean, I'll say this, even though it was what a lot of people think was a down year simply because Miles, you expect the world from him. Points total wise in the PLL, this was his second best points total year of his career. He had 22 points this year. Obviously, 2021, one less game, he had 32 points, but that was like MVP type season and arguably could have been the MVP. In the bubble, in 6 games, he had 13 points, and then with Chaos in 2019, which was same amount of games as 2022, he had 18 points. I think a lot of people think as well that Miles' this year was lackluster because he didn't dish out a lot of assists. Like a lot of people are accustomed to. His first year in the PLL, he didn't have double-digit assists, which it's going to happen when there's a lot of alphas on this team. But I still think Miles is very much in his prime, and I think he'll be on this team moving into 2023. But we'll see. Nat is arguably the most unpredictable coach GM in the league, and we'll see what happens there. But moving back to the trade, because we did get off on a tangent there, because it's going to happen. Talk about Matt Rahill. He did play for Cannons last year, so we do have some PLL tape on him. He used his grad year at Maryland, finished it with 28 ground balls, 16 caused turnovers. He's part of that famous Maryland Terps defense that we've seen with the Whips over the last 4 years. Comes from that system. Another undrafted rookie. He only played in 5 games for Cannons last year. Had 9 ground balls, 1 caused turnover. Finally, a righty defenseman, which is nice for the Redwoods. There are a ton of lefty defensemen, as Nat mentioned to Sarah in this article here. But I think putting Rahill in a rotation here now with Glaze, with Epple, that's huge. That's such a massive pickup and such an underrated pickup. And I think when it's all said and done, Matt Rahill's going to be, not that Piatelli's bad, I think Rahill is going to be the gem of this trade for the Redwoods.
Yes, because it's almost like a 1-for-1 with Piatelli and Kavanagh. I think Kavanagh is going to go and do great things for the Cannons, just because of their offensive style and the players that are around him there. Yeah. They kind of fit where he is in his career right now better. So I think he's going to go and be very productive for them. So we're almost getting a 1-for-1 with Kavanagh and Piatelli. Rahill offers a lot. Not only does he offer depth down low and being able to rotate just in case someone gets hurt and things like that, but also I think he offers an opportunity to really play up top in a rotation with the LSMs as well. He has very good footwork. He's very good with his stick. He's aggressive. He understands the game of lacrosse very well. His IQ is insane. He's very good at communicating. And, being able to guard some of the best attackmen in the world at the collegiate level, and then going to the pros, it's very much equivalent to guarding midfielders. So he has the experience of how to play down low, because you don't lose the footwork, but he's more, I would say, almost more capable, air quotes around that, to defend up top on the midfielders. So he has that fluidity to go back and forth. I think he'll end up playing a lot more up top because we have Cohen and that little cohort has started to get going. They've started to really understand, the qualities of each other. Obviously, Glaze and Epple know each other, but Arden really started to, cement himself into that group. So I think that will stay, and they'll continue to build that. And Rahill will be like a backup option for down there, but we'll play a lot up top.
And I think, we both obviously love Glaze and think he's going to come back fine, but he's going to be coming off a major injury. So this also gives you insurance policy just in case, anything isn't fully right, going into training camp or anything. But I truly think Glaze will be okay going into training camp this summer. But here's your defense depth now across the board. This is your defense depth chart. You have Glaze, you have Epple, you have Arden Cohen, you have Finn Sullivan still, who played very well in relief of Eddie when he got injured, stepped up in a big way. You have Ryan Kennedy on the roster as well, and then you have Matt Rahill, which Ryan Kennedy's the only defender on this team that is under 6'1".
Yep.
Because Rahill's 6'3". Also, gonna vibe check the defensive number here for you, because I'm a big fan of it, just based off of his name and his size. And also shout out Matt Rahill. He's a PA guy, went to Springside Chestnut Hill High School. Number 7 is the number that Rahill's listed with right now.
It's a weird number.
Big fan of it, with the way his name will look on the back of the jersey with 7 though.
He looks good with 7, but it's always been a weird number for me. I think just in lacrosse in general.
I'm dumb. He's not gonna wear 7. I'm dumb.
Doesn't Jules wear 7?
Yeah,
Oh my god! Even I'm just as dumb.
I think that's the number he wore with Cannons, yes. Maybe.
But I think that's what he wore with Maryland as well. I might be wrong, but
dumb.
7's a weird number.
You didn't hear that.
I mean, anyway, while we're on the topic, 7's a weird number in lacrosse for me. Like
He's got to be the right guy. Like Jules pulls it off.
Jules and Teat pull it off, but like it's still like,
Teat really pulls it off.
It's weird.
I like it.
To me, Teat looks 1,000% better in 51.
See, I disagree.
But I got introduced to Teat in 50
right
with Cornell, and then also playing in Riptide.
See, I saw like when he got drafted by Chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I saw like the highlight tape that they put out, obviously in 51. I was like, 51 is an offensive guy. That's just ugh.
But I had been watching that for 4 years,
and then
obviously I had like that was my.
And then he wore it with the Riptide. I was like, all right, like that's his college. But then I saw him make his debut with Atlas in that 7, and buddy, I felt like the levitating SpongeBob meme when the Travis Scott plays. That was me. I was like, wow, that's a beautiful human right there.
I don't know. I think they're the only two who wear 7 in the league.
Are they? I'm trying to think if anybody else does.
It looks so much better as 77. Oh my god.
I could see that.
Just to add another one, just oh my god. The results are tremendous. But 1-7, like it looks weird in all sports if you ask me. Like 7, it's just a weird looking number. I'm sorry, bro.
Michael Vick?
Vic made it look good. Who else made it look good? Truly.
Just trying to think of who's worn 7.
That's my point. Nobody wears it.
You put me on the spot.
It looks bad. Nobody wears it.
I'm pulling this up right now.
Vic made it look spectacular, though. Like Vic, Teat, and Jules are probably the only 3 I can really think. I don't know why Kevin Durant comes to my mind, but he did not wear 7.
Mickey Mantle wore number 7. Cristiano Ronaldo. John Elway.
Elway was dusty. He had to have looked dusty in that number.
No, he looked good in 7 when they won the Super Bowl.
That don't mean he didn't look dusty. He might have been good in it. Dudes be fire, but look dusty. Rec specs, bro? Come on. Every dude who walks out with rec specs on looks dusty. Might be fire, but looks dusty. That's what I mean by 7. Like, it just looks dusty. Some people play it off, but it's just a dusty look.
I have to disagree.
I know you do. It's the same reason you disagree with Sticks. Trash-ass number.
You're out of your mind.
Watch him put Sticks on.
Hey,
Mans is going to wear Sticks.
He'd be one of my guys then.
Yeah, I bet.
Something tells me he's going to wear like a number 30 something to fit the mold with every other defenseman on this team outside of Arden, who still wears set number 40.
He should wear like 34.
Doesn't somebody have 34 on a Redwoods roster? Or am I
think you tripping. I think Kennedy
24.
wears 35.
Hallenbeck wears 24.
Mm-hmm. Kennedy wears 35?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say 32, but I think Ray Hill would look kind of iffy in 32. I think he would look how you think Scott Ratliff looks in 32. I think Scott looks fine at 32. You hate it.
Scott looks like a Funko Pop in 32. I love Scott.
He looks like Kanye and what was his name?
Roblox.
Kanye and who was that? Lil Pump? They did the video.
Scott looked like one of the bubble hockey players.
Oh no.
In 32. But we are big fans of this deal for Redwoods. Let's flip it to the Cannon side of things, who acquire Matt Kavanagh. I do want to bring this up to you because it popped in my head as soon as I was like doing the intro. Now that trades are open, this is more specifically for the 4 teams who are in it, more so than the teams that are out of it. But if you get traded to a team that's in the championship series, but you weren't on their team, do you still get to play? How does that work?
That's a good question.
Like, I might be overthinking it a bit, but like,
well, I guess I would assume once you're on their active, or like once you're on their like team, you should be able to play.
Yeah. Like, that would suck. Say you're on, like, you know, Atlas or Whips or whatever, you get traded to, like, Cannons or the Water Dogs or something.
Redwoods, yeah.
And you're no longer in the championship series. That'd be tough.
I mean, depending on who you are, a lot of those guys, I don't think a lot of those guys were planning on playing in the championship series.
Say you are a guy, like,
from what I gathered from like press conferences, I may be completely wrong, but obviously personal opinion and feeling on this is a lot of the people who will be playing in championship series are young guys, first, second years who didn't get a lot of play time during the season, or guys who are on reserve rosters or trying to make reserve rosters.
And the player
pool. And player pool guys to see who can be a fit for their real team. That's what I gained. So, I'm not expecting a lot of starters and stuff to be there. We may see one or two from each team just to kind of be there, be a leader, implement.
But I was even thinking from this perspective, like, these three guys in this trade, I'm 90% sure all three of them do not play NLL. So, like, imagine if Cannons and Redwoods were in the championship series, one of the two, and then they get traded out of it. That would suck. I'd be so bummed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That would suck a lot, actually. Because
that's going to be interesting now. Really nice. Now that I'm thinking about it too, that's going to be interesting to see, since both of these teams are not in the championship series. It doesn't affect anything. But I'll be interested if any of the teams that are decide to make a trade, like, don't trade anybody or trade for anybody until after the championship series now.
That could be.
Unless it's for a young guy who hadn't cracked a roster or is, like, on the bubble or something like that, and you trade a draft pick or something like that and you bring him in.
I don't really see too many, like, blockbuster.
Because it's Whips, Chrome, Atlas, Archers. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny the Water Dogs aren't in the championship series. They won the whole damn thing.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. That's the second year in a row? No, because last year... Because they were 5 seed. Last year, Chaos was 6.
Yes.
But I was going to say second year in a row, 5 seeds won, but no.
Crazy. But yeah, that's something I'm going to have to keep an eye on now to see if any of those 4 teams that are in the championship series, like, hold off on trading anybody until afterwards.
Yeah.
Which I did watch Paul Rabel's most recent YouTube video. Where
of him smashing. Oh. I thought you were talking about him smashing the pumpkins.
No. He recapped, like, the season and everything, and he said the next State of the League will have all of the information for the championship series.
Let's go.
So, looking forward to that. I would assume that's going to be probably in December that they'll have info for that, because it'll be the last one for 2022. But Cav gets traded to Cannons. You and I had talked about this happening for quite a while. I think we've talked on pod where I was like, go get Ryan Drenner from Matt Kavanagh. That would have been a god dream. We knew it wouldn't happen, but it was something that would have been nice. But Cav gets dealt. He's played 7 pro lacrosse seasons so far in his career. He's got 229 career points, 134 of those being goals, 93 assists, won 2 championships with the Denver Outlaws. He's third all-time in playoff points with 49. And now he's playing with Lyle Thompson, who Cavs Notre Dame teams back in the day eliminated Lyle from the NCAA tournament twice. Quirk apparently called Lyle before making the deal, which obviously that happens in all pro sports, and Lyle being the face of Cannons, that's going to happen. But it's going to be interesting, and Nat also said, from the bottom of my heart, if I was going to trade him anywhere, I had to move him to a spot where he could truly excel and his strengths could show. I just felt like this was it. He'll excel there. Guys gravitate towards him. It's going to be interesting to watch Cav in a big-time, like, off-ball role, because I think he's going to have to adjust to that with Lyle being there. It's not like Rob, where both guys can kind of be ball dominant and you still succeed. Cav's going to have to put the assist cap on and really excel in that off-ball role for that offense to work. How do you think Cav and Lyle now kind of being paired up on that offense is going to work?
The same way I work with anybody else. You just concede respect to Lyle Thompson because that's who he is.
Well, I'm saying from the perspective of Cav, like coming in, like, do you think Cav's going to be able to like fully adopt that role successfully?
I mean, if you want to play lacrosse, yeah. That under my assumption, that's how he's walking into this. Like, okay, yeah, like I'm switching teams. I'm going to play with Lyle Thompson, so my job is to pass the ball. Like, not that he can't shoot the ball, not that he can't dodge, not that he can't, freely play, but like when you play with a guy of that caliber, it's like playing with LeBron James. Your game completely changes and you tailor around what he wants to do. It's like playing with Tom Brady. The whole offense changes when he gets it. Like Lyle Thompson is that kind of player where no matter who you are, you concede your play style to fit into his. So everybody is, once again, going to set picks for Lyle Thompson. Everybody's going to watch Lyle Thompson dodge. Everybody's going to move off ball for Lyle Thompson while he dodges. Or they're going to, Lyle's going to come and set the pick and they're going to pass it to Lyle. Or, something like that. Whereas Lyle's always going to be involved and Cav just has to figure out where he fits alongside Lyle. That's how he has to approach it. If he doesn't approach it that way, he's going to be watching from the outside in.
And I think with Cav now, the other angle is how does this offense change in terms of now you're not going to have like this revolving door on this Cannons offense. You went from Shane Jackson to Mark Cockerton to a whole bunch of guys playing on this offense last year, just trying to find the right formula, and it just did not work. Now you bring in Cav. You don't give up any draft capital either, really. I'm just wondering how Coach Quirk, and we're going to try to work on getting our coaches on this offseason, going into big moments and everything like that. One thing I want to ask Quirk is how does he plan to operate the other two guys who were like the constants in this offense alongside Cav now? Where you have Cav, you have Lyle. What do you think this does for Drenner's role? What do you think this does for Asher's role? Especially seeing how Asher was kind of playing more on attack towards the end of the year last year than I think a lot of people expected when he got drafted, where they thought, oh, he's going to be the midfield guy and, come in and be, out of the box and everything, where as the season went on, Asher was, asked to fill a number of roles for this offense. I'm curious to see like just what the overall game plan is now for Drenner's role, Asher's role, and then anybody else who comes into this roster this offseason.
I think Asher fights with Cav for that spot. I don't think they're obviously just going to let Cav walk in and just have it, but he probably concedes the spot to Cav because I don't see them making this trade and spending the money on Cav for him not to play. So he'll play, and then Asher and Ryder, or Asher and Ryan will take, reps from up top. One of them may get traded, probably Drunner, if someone does get traded, which
king of the trades.
And he's an open book when it comes to that guy. Like, you could trade him anywhere because he's going to fit in anywhere. He's just that kind of player. So I'm interested to see if they don't do that. That means Asher's going to stay down there and Drenner's going to take a lot of reps from up top. Those are pretty much their two options with that whole situation.
Yeah.
Because I don't see them not starting Shane Jackson with Lyle.
Well, Shane got released.
That's right. Who is on the
player
other
pool?
Who's that they've been starting on the other side?
Cockerton.
That's right. Maybe they both play. Asher and Cav. And then they just leave Ryder up top or Drenner up top.
Pulling up their roster now.
That can absolutely happen.
Yeah, it was Mark Cockerton. Now they have Cav, Asher Knowlton, Lyle. And then their midfield is just loaded with Drenner. They have Steven Reifest, Chris Aslanian, Ryan Tierney. They have producer Johnny Donville. and then somewhere in the void, Jake Fricaro, who like fell off the face of the earth last year.
Yeah.
And then obviously you have Bubba Fairman, who contributed a ton offensively, even as a D-midi. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to just see how this whole roster gets constructed for Cannons this offseason, and who stays, who goes, who comes in. Obviously, they don't have a first-round draft pick right now. But overall, I think if there was a scenario for the Cannons to make a move, this was one of them. It was go get Cav, because he was a guy that was going to be on the trade block. And I think this makes Cannon's offense more experienced, and I think it gives them more clarity into what they're going to be able to do, not only for now, but the future.
Crazy. They might not change anything, and Cav might just be a trading piece for later. Or they plug them in to simply use now so that they can trade other pieces to set up for the future.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much, honestly, behind the scenes that could be done with this. Because, Cav fits into their offense, but then again, he doesn't really fit in the NA offense right now with the way he's playing. So they could do absolutely nothing with him and do something completely different.
Yeah. I mean, like we said when we first started talking about this portion of the trade is you have to wait and see it like live and happening and see how these guys mesh and how they play together. But it's another piece for Lyle to succeed, and we'll see how Cav fits in with the Cannons now as he moves on from the Woods. Big Cav guy too. I really enjoyed watching Cav, from 19 to 21 on this Redwoods team when he was really at his peak. But last year was tough, and I think it was kind of the thing that the Redwoods needed to take the green-colored goggles off and be like, okay, we need to make some moves, and we need to, switch this team up a little bit to finally reach that mountaintop that we've been trying to climb for the last 4 years. It sucks for Cav that, he had to have the down season he had. But overall, I think it's good he's getting a fresh start, and I think for the Redwoods, it's good that they're going to finally feel okay with some roster turnover and fitting in some new pieces now to build this team to be consistent for the next 4 years.
I feel like this is one of those trades where every side is equally happy, and this is good for every side involved. All players, all coaches, all teams, everything involved is this is good for. I don't really feel bad either way about this trade.
Yeah, and I think in a way it's Connor Field's Ian McKay-esque. Not that it's as polarizing, because I think a lot of people saw this coming in terms of Cav getting dealt, but I think it'll end up working out well for both teams, just like Fieldsy going to Archers and Ian going to Chaos.
Yeah, it definitely has that same potential. And also depends on what they do with these players. Once again, depending on what they do, it could work out even more for one side than the other. So there's a lot in limbo. It's a very good trade on paper for both teams, but depending on how it plays out physically, there's a lot in limbo.
And it's the first trade of what's probably going to be a few this offseason. But as one offseason is in full swing, we have a schedule for another season. TSN Games of the Week schedule has been announced. Obviously, this does nothing for DJ and I because we are in America. We are not in Canada. But for our Canadian audience, which is about 25% of our audience, Deej, on the audio portion of OTB, is about 25% in Canada. This is for you. And this is probably going to, one way or another, sort of affect the U.S. viewing audience. I would assume some of these become ESPN Games of the Week too, once that schedule comes out. But here we go. NLL Game of the Week on TSN. is right here. First game of the season, Friday, December 2nd, because it's the only game on TV. The Philadelphia Wings at Halifax. Makes a ton of sense to have your first game of the year there. But then we also have one on Saturday, December 3rd, Vancouver at Toronto, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Then Saturday, December 10th, Vancouver at Calgary. Some Alterna Cup action as well as that Vancouver and Toronto game, but Vancouver at Calgary at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Then Friday, December 16th, wow, that's interesting. Vancouver at Calgary, December 10th, then Calgary at Vancouver the following week, 10 p.m. Eastern Time.
Just keep scrolling through.
Then New Year's Eve, December 30th, San Diego at Calgary. So Calgary, 3 straight TSN games of the week. And then we get a U.S.-based team to kick things off on Friday the 13th. The Albany Firewater Dog Wolves at Halifax, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Saturday, January 28th.
You forgot the whips part. They got a few whips.
Oh yeah, the water whip, dog, wolf,
fire,
snake,
water dog.
fire. Oh. Friday the 13th, Albany at Halifax. Saturday, January 28th, Toronto at Calgary. Calgary, how many dollars did you pay to have these TSN games of the week?
A whole lot.
This is compensation for Curtis Dixon losing. You get all the games of the week on TSN.
Gotta be.
Saturday, February 4th, New York at Toronto. That'll be a good game, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. As well as another one on Saturday, February 4th, Saskatchewan at Vancouver at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Something tells me that New York at Toronto game will somehow make its way on an ESPN type situation. Friday, February 10th, Saskatchewan at Calgary, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Friday, February 17th, Calgary at Vancouver once again. So all of those matchups are your TSN games of the week at some point. Then February 25th, Vancouver at Saskatchewan. Friday, March 3rd, Buffalo at Halifax. Saturday, March 11th, Albany at Toronto. Saturday, April 1st, Buffalo at Toronto. Saturday, April 8th, Panther City at Calgary. Friday, April 14th, Las Vegas at Calgary. Saturday, April 15th, Philadelphia at Toronto. Saturday, April 22nd, New York at Halifax or Colorado at Saskatchewan. It can be flexed according to the schedule here. I'm assuming that's based on if New York is in a postseason position or not, or if Colorado and Saskatchewan are. And then Saturday, April 29th, New York at Vancouver, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So that gives Calgary 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games of the week. That is like in baseball when a player gets offered the qualifying offer and then leaves and you get a draft pick for it. This is the qualifying offer. Your superstar player leaves, you get 8 games of the week on TSN.
I'm just upset it wasn't 7, so I could use the Kanye opioid crisis in TMZ as a quote tweet, where he's literally just screaming at him, 7!
Or my go-to 7 thing is from Seinfeld when George Costanza's trying to name his kid 7 after Mickey Mantle, and he's just in the car, and he's like, 7!
You've seen that TMZ meltdown, haven't you?
Yeah.
7!
7! It's a great name. It's a great name. That's one of the best Seinfeld episodes ever. Some good games on the schedule here.
Oh, yeah. And I can't wait for one of these games to be the face of some crazy scandal about the chin strap thing. That I don't know. Oh, yeah.
Talk to me about this, because I saw you retweet it, but I didn't get a chance to really dive into it because I think it was put on Twitter yesterday. And yesterday I had the day job, then I had to call a football game, and then I had more Philly sports bender to go on.
Yeah. So basically, it's proper use of equipment. They want them to actually have their chin straps on their chin and like buckled in, so like it should be touching their chin and not hanging off under, their neck and like, over their Adam's apple. I think your chin needs a little more protection than your Adam's apple. I don't think you want to bite off your tongue when you get hit, but protect your Adam's apple. I don't think you want all your teeth to fall out, but want your Adam's apple to be there. I think you see where I'm going with this.
T's and P's to the Unbuckled Chin Strap podcast.
Is no one is protecting their jewel of a face in all reality. Like not saying all.
It's funny you said that because Jules Henningberg was the last host of Unbuckled Chin Strap,
and he also was the last person to come out with a broken nose. But like he was also wearing his helmet just fine. He just got cross-checked in the face. But yeah, like it's just the whole point of protection, especially with head injuries. Like one of the biggest things is people not wearing mouth guards, which people brought up as well. They think they're going to crack down on like people not wearing mouth guards correctly or not having them in. That's a huge thing. Like people don't realize having a mouth guard protects you from having a concussion. It's like 60% of the time or something like that. And then you couple that with your chin strap. So instead of when you hit the ground, your chin popping open, your chin strap is going to keep your chin locked in place and keep it there so you don't harm yourself. But instead, everybody's chin strap is down here and they hit the ground and go.
Do your strap hang low, do it wobble to the flow.
And now they look like the Grim Reaper from Billy and Mandy. Anytime he gets upset, his mouth just drops down. Like, you know what I mean?
It's one of my favorite memes.
Yes. So, and that's what people are walking around looking like because they're not protecting their jewel. So just wear. I think it's a great idea. I think it needs to go down in levels as well because you see it in, senior box A and you see it in other levels of box. Like guys aren't wearing their chin straps properly and it causes injuries. It's just not safe. People were complaining about it. And,
that's because everybody's like, oh, we want to look cool.
Yeah, they're just kind of just throwing jabs. Like,
well, you're not going to look cool when your skull's split in half like homeboy from House of the Dragon. If you know, you know.
Like that. That's all I'm trying to say here. That's all I'm trying to say here.
So yeah, I'm a big fan. Anything to improve player safety, we are a fan of.
Because I want to see them play. Like that's what all of this is about. We don't do what we do for them to get hurt. We do what we do to watch them play, so that you guys can watch them play. But instead, if everybody's chins are hanging down to their feet, I don't think anybody's gonna go play.
Right, 100%. So look good, feel good, play good. You gotta be protected good too. Deej, we got mentioned in an article this week about NIL and lacrosse. Shout out to Stephen McAvoy. Hosts the Get in the Hole podcast for us. We are not affiliated whatsoever with the NIL deal website. It's Steve's actual day job. So I want to thank Steve for reaching out to confide in somebody who he respects their opinion on the sport and their knowledge of the sport. And I just want to say, if you have a problem, there's people who have issues with us in the lacrosse community. Mostly me, because I never played the sport. I ended up talking about the sport, and I have found, some success in talking about the sport in this space and being involved in the sport. I'm not going to name drop because I'm too good of a person to be doing that.
Mature adults.
But if you have a problem with me, or you have a problem with people who happen to podcast for our company that we don't get paid, people don't get this twisted. We have sponsors and everything, but we do not collect a paycheck from hosting this podcast or any of our podcasts whatsoever right now. We are truly independent, grinding through the mud to get to that point, but we all work together. Nobody works for me. Nobody works for DJ. Nobody works for Matt, Dom, anybody. We work together as a symbiotic company and just put out dope content for people and trying to turn this into our actual careers. If you have a problem with me in the lacrosse space, why don't you just DM me like a grown adult and just say, hey, let's have a conversation. I know people take it very strangely that I had no knowledge of the sport going into 2018, and in 4 years I've flipped that into being a co-host on one of the most successful lacrosse podcasts on the internet. Sorry that I was able to do that and that my brain is able to function that way. Sorry I can just grip onto a sport, fall in love with the sport, and then be able to talk about it at an intelligent pace on a microphone once a week with one of the homies. Sorry about it.
And I'm sorry that y'all want to gatekeep the sport. Like,
yes.
What you have done is exactly what we want other people to do. NBA fans don't gatekeep new fans who just hopped in and then happen to learn everything really quickly and picks, a random team to be a fan of, and that's what it is. NFL fans don't do that. Baseball fans do. They might chastise you for a week or so about being a bandwagon.
The weird baseball fans that do it are like 50 years old and older.
Yes, and that's understandable because they lived in a different era where baseball meant a different thing. Totally understandable to me. But now you don't see that. They might chastise them for like a few days, a few hours about being a bandwagon, but then they leave it at that, leave them alone, and that's it. We're like, it's a continuous thing with the lacrosse community, like bashing guys who like weren't in from the beginning. Well, guess what? Guess who else wasn't in from the beginning? Me. I jumped in my junior year of high school at 16 years old, and then I just learned everything I knew. Like, gatekeeping the sport and gatekeeping the sport and just being on people's backs for how they enjoy it and how they get into it is what's hindering lacrosse from being the sport it really should be. Other people see that and then don't want to get involved. That's a huge problem. Like, lacrosse could easily surpass soccer and could possibly surpass hockey in terms of viewership and entertainment and people going just because of its excitement levels. But when people see how fans interact with each other or how media interacts with fans or media interacts with each other, they don't want to be a part of that because of what they see from the outside looking in. And obviously inside looking out, we know what it's like in the community. We're here. We understand everyone isn't like that. And we understand it's not always like that. Even those guys aren't always like that. But that's what they see. And if that's their first impression, they're going to run with it. Because that's one thing I've learned is as much as people say, like, how someone feels about you doesn't matter, it does. And first impressions matter a lot.
100%. And like, I was even texting Steve, like, don't worry about, people coming after you because people are going to be like that. Like, even I still feel like I have to tiptoe sometimes when we talk about certain things because it's helpful that you are the co-host of this show now with me because you played and you have that, game analysis type of thing where I don't have that. Like, somebody could mention a lacrosse play to me. I have no fucking clue what you're talking about. And I'm just watching it from a standpoint of like, ball went in back of the net. Let's see how the fuck it happened. I don't know the X's and O's type of thing. And that's this podcast. We don't give a shit really about talking X's and O's. That's why so many guys come on this show with us and kick it, which, breaking news, we might have a certain very famed player for this podcast that we talked about all summer coming on the show very, very soon. Teaser. DJ didn't know about that until I just dropped it here. But, it's so goofy. Like, to gatekeep this sport, to shit talk people who talk about the sport, like, I just don't understand the God complex some people in the lacrosse community have. I don't understand the disdain for people who want to talk about the sport in any aspect. Like, Steve's not a lacrosse guy at all. He might have gone to one of the most powerhouse high schools for lacrosse, where Tom Schreiber and Will Manny went to high school, but he's not a lacrosse guy. He went to high school with Kyle Thornton. That's his claim to fame with lacrosse. So, like, for people trying to come after him for this article and, say there were quotes from somebody who this guy works for, again, Steve does not work for me. He works for our company that we have. And just because he trusts me to give, my thoughts and opinions on what he was asking me, sorry about it. Like, people just need to grow the fuck up, honestly. Like, I'm sick and tired of the lacrosse community being this way. And that's why I love our listeners and our fans who rock with us and have gotten down with our content no matter what has gone on in the chair that DJ sits in now. Like, people fuck with us for who we are and the content we put out there, and that's dummy appreciative. Like, I wouldn't give a shit if we had 2 listeners a week. Like, it's just cool to see the community that has come around us. Like, you know, when we went to DC and we gave our tickets away, and it happened to go to somebody who has been rocking with us since day one. Like, that's the type of shit that matters to me when it comes to covering the sport and growing this game from that aspect. You know, the ever overused term, grow the game. That's what it's about to me, and that's what I was doing while I, you know, answered the questions that Steven presented to me for his article, which we're going to dive into, and I wanted to get your take on just some of the space, since you were a college lacrosse player as well and just missed out on the NIL era, which is so unfortunate. Steve also did an article on, like, the biggest NIL guy out there. I don't know if you saw that too.
I did not see that one.
From your least favorite college.
Oh,
He did a Q&A with Mitchell Pelkey.
Oh yeah, he is like the biggest NIL guy.
Who Steve said he might be able to get us in contact with him, which would be pretty sweet.
I mean, yeah, because he's big.
He's big.
As much as I hate that school, I'd sit down with him. That's
OH, Edo! Oh no!
Before we go a little deeper, like, my only thing lastly with, like, the gatekeeping is the people who are gatekeeping the sport shouldn't even be doing it, because the people who the sport belong to don't even want to gatekeep it. Yeah. They want to share it with literally the entire universe. If they could, they'd teach an alien how to play.
Yeah. And
here you are, saying who can and can't do
holier than thou.
Like, get out of here. If, like, you know, obviously, like, I don't want to pull him into this, but if Lyle Thompson, like, knew this was going on, he'd probably be out here chopping heads off. Like he'd literally be, like, scolding this man. Like, who gives you the right to say what can and can't go on with the game of lacrosse?
Yeah.
Like, you know, just think about who you are and humble yourself before you go and spread or dictate other things about other people.
And it's not the first time some of these people have mentioned me without mentioning me. Have a spine and come have a dialogue. Like, grow the fuck up. I hate that shit. Like, don't talk about me without talking about me. Keep my name out of your mouth unless you're willing to talk to me face to face. And I'll leave it at that. We never like to get very controversial on this podcast from that aspect, but it's been a boiling point for me with certain factions of the lacrosse community for years now, and I'm just fucking sick of it. So grow the fuck up or come talk to me. Simple as that. Have a spine. Anyway, the NIL deal. Our boy Stephen McAvoy a couple days ago put an article out. Lacrosse Unlimited grows UNLTD roster, which is their NIL platform. They inked 6 players to NIL deals. I feel like I'm having a blank on who Lacrosse Unlimited is.
They sell, like,
okay,
gear and stuff online, and, like,
that's what I thought.
Kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right, they're the retail store.
Mm-hmm.
So they had an inaugural class of 10 athletes from last year join the brand. They have 6 new ones this year. They're joining their team are Graham Bundy Jr., a midfielder from Georgetown, Abby Bosco, defenseman from Maryland, Will Bowen from Georgetown, Kate Dever, goalie from USC, Kayla Martello from Boston College, and Connor Therault, the goalie from Brown. So that's the new 6 there, both men's and women's. Each player will have their own page on Lacrosse Unlimited's website where they will show off the equipment they use, with fans being able to dress like them and get replica sticks strung like their favorite collegiate athletes. Additionally, the deal is designed to give these athletes exposure to Lacrosse Unlimited's follower base of over 290,000. CEO of Lacrosse Unlimited, Joe DeSimone, said, partnering with these athletes helps Lacrosse Unlimited stay in touch authentically with the sport of lacrosse, its latest trends, and its values. We get to see what gear these elite stars are gravitating towards, why they chose what they chose, and what's working for them at the collegiate level. It's invaluable information for us as we continue to grow our brand and serve the needs of our customers. And then, Steve asked me my thoughts on everything, and I had said, like, before the PLL and the NLL, like, being where they are right now, like, true lacrosse coverage stopped at the college level. Like, Memorial Day happened, and then bang, lacrosse is done until, February. But now with access to coverage, with ESPN, we have drafts, we have games, we have unbelievable access to the sport now. And beforehand, it was like minor league. Like the MLL as a whole, when you look back on it, a lot of the coverage was minor league-esque. Now I think we're just going to keep seeing the NIL stuff boom, and you're going to be able to follow along with the collegiate athletes you fall in love with, because a lot of people are not like me, where I fell in love with the game at the pro level and have just been able to kind of like backtrack and like look at college players and look at guys when they were back in college. Now, a lot of these people who are fans of either a college team or a college player, and they get an NIL deal, you're following along with them from the jump. Now you're going to follow them to the pro level and still continue to follow along with their career and see what they do next. And, we talked with K18 after the championship game, and he said, there's dudes out here now, they're scouting like middle schoolers and high schools and getting like recruiting prospects and stuff like that. He tweeted it too, which even like 3 years ago was not really happening. Now there's people out there putting highlight tapes out there for high school sophomores. It's fucking crazy, and I think that's only going to continue to make the NIL space explode. And you saw like Joey Spallina getting an NIL deal as a senior in high school, and now he's playing for his NIL company is his coach. So I mean, like, that could potentially like evolve, where it's like, oh look, high school athlete is now sponsored, as an example, NIL deal with Gate Lacrosse, and now I'm going to Syracuse. Like, that's a huge tactic in terms of, these NIL deals moving forward, and I think it's only going to help the sport continue to grow across the board, and people just be more, they're going to be able to really recognize people in the space more, because you're going to get an early start on it from these NIL deals.
Yeah, I like what it's going to do for the sport in terms of bringing back up what K18 talked about. Like, you look back at like him, Paul, Mikey Powell, Casey Powell, Joe Walters, Jules. Like, if these guys had NLL back when they were playing, the impact that would have had not only on their careers but on the game of lacrosse. I think more kids get into it. Like, looking at lacrosse, I don't see another sport where younger players try and literally be like those players more than I do in lacrosse. Like, I never see, except maybe basketball.
I was going to say basketball is probably the only like other one.
Yeah, where you see players like emulate other players, but it goes a step farther with lacrosse, because you see guys want to wear the exact same leg undergarment combo that his favorite player wore, along with the exact cleats that he has, and he wants his stick strung the exact same way he does. He's going to wear his tilt on his helmet the exact same way. Like, it doesn't go that far in basketball. Kids just, wear whatever they want to wear in basketball. Like lacrosse, a lot of kids are trying to emulate every part of their game after their favorite player, and a lot of time that starts in college. So NIL is only going to push that further. Oh, I can get this stick that's strung up pretty much exactly like my favorite player, and he gets a cut of that money. That's cool. Let me do that. And then maybe I'll, then they're thinking, okay, if I keep doing this, I keep using his stick, I use his moves, I'll be in the same place he'll be in, and then I'll be able to make that money, and I'll be able to, sell sticks to kids that want to play like me. Like, it starts a chain ladder, and it's an important chain ladder, in my opinion.
100%. And I think two players that stand out to me that really missed out on NIL, like even outside of like the Paul and K18 and everything, Miles Jones and Drew Snyder.
And Serge.
Yeah.
Perkovic, oh my God. He would have killed up here in the Midwest during his time at Notre Dame.
But with Miles and Drew, like year one of the PLL, when they were advertising them with Adidas and everything, and how like big those two are on social media as well, like Those two with NIL would have been millionaires.
Literally millionaires. I think they could have been millionaires.
Um,
Insane.
it's wild. But I think NIL is like, with lacrosse especially, is like, this might be a bold statement. I think it's the number 2 most beneficial sport for NIL behind football.
I will slightly disagree. I will slightly disagree because basketball will end up being that way.
It will, but I feel like the deals we've seen so far, like that have been publicized at least, in terms of like, just like number of them, I feel like and it might just be because we're so tapped into like the lacrosse space.
Wait, hold that. You might be right. Just because basketball is so one and done. So I don't see a lot of companies really dumping money on a player for 1 year.
And a lot of people are, and a lot of these like superstars are going right to the G League Ignite team.
They'll do it for 3 or 4 years. They won't do it for 1 year. I also, some people might hate me for this, but I want to see lacrosse change their age limit. It shouldn't be 4 years, in my opinion. 2.
I'd be cool if it was the football way.
2 or 3. I don't think it should be 1. No.
No. I think the football rules would be fine with lacrosse, but I also don't hate the.
But like, I'm sorry, I could see like Connor Schellenberger right now not playing a single touch of Virginia lacrosse ever again, finishing his schooling still because they don't do anything.
He's a sophomore.
Yeah, they don't do anything during this time of year, but still playing PLL. He's good enough to play in the PLL right now. And then he could just go to school during the school year.
The only argument I'm going to throw out there, and I might sound dumb because I didn't play or anything, and I think we both agree and we saw kind of the adjustment period it took, even though it was in a limited dosage for Michael Sowers, year 1 to year 2. I think the switch of college to PLL with the number of extensive rule changes in terms of shot clock, field length, and everything. Not that Schellenberger's not going to succeed. Like, he's going to be a superstar. But I think it does take a while for you to get acclimated depending on the type of player you are. And I think it does benefit some guys to have the full 4 years of just college lacrosse under your belt. That way, when you're going to the PLL, it can kind of be one of those things where, like, not that it's easier, but the speed can kind of improve your game almost, and it's a better adjustment period because you have multiple years of the college game under your belt.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with that. I just think that
you know what I mean, though?
Yeah, I just think the option needs to be there. Because, like,
I think the football rule would be fine. Like, if you could come out after your junior year, if that player is ready, like, I think that would make sense.
I mean, I was saying 2 just as an option. I doubt they would go to 2, but just to, like, I'm thinking of players like Sam Hanley. You know, I mean, even Rambo was very good his sophomore year. Like, there's players who, Jared Bernhardt, you know, like Pat Spencer. You look at how their draft stock would have been in their sophomore or junior year versus their senior year. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think they should have the option to choose when their draft stock is the best to go if they're ready. You know, but they don't have that option at all because they have to sit the whole 4. Like, just giving the players that option to exercise when they feel they are ready goes a long way with, like, how players play, how they prepare, how they take those seasons. Like, I think you get a lot more out of football players in those first 2 years than you do in that 3rd and 4th year. Those first 2 years, they're working, they're trying to get on the field, they're getting better every day. But then that junior year, senior, they're all about what they're doing on the field during game so they can get drafted. And nothing else matters but what they're doing on field. So, like, I think we could see the same production coming on the cross where guys are working a little bit harder years 1 and 2 and then looking to be that polished product year 3 to possibly go to the league. And if it's not looking good, then they stay a 4th year.
Which is why I also think, like, if it were to change, it would have to be like the NFL style. Also, because you look at who's on a game day roster, and it's so hard to crack a game day roster in the PLL with it being 19, and you look at those 19 guys across the board on all 8 teams right now, not thinking of expansion down the line. Those guys are fucking massive. And if you let a kid who thinks he's ready after his junior year come out, and then it's like, he goes to training camp, and it's like, oh, fuck. Like, maybe I wasn't ready yet, and I should have gone back to college. Well, it's like, well,
but then,
you missed out.
No, that's when we got to have draft combines. We got to have those times. Like if we want the sport to go where it needs to be on par with other sports where you can go into the draft and you can exercise options and look at things and then decide, you know what, I'm not ready to give up my college eligibility yet. I'll go back for another year or two, and then I'll get into this. You can do that in football. You can do that in basketball. I even think you can do it in hockey. Well, granted, you can get drafted out of high school in hockey, but like, you know what I mean? Like you have that opportunity to exercise that option to a certain point before you lose your eligibility and then still step backward. That's where the sport's got to go.
Here's my question, though, and I might just be brain farting here because this is where my brain is thinking. I think the toughest part with that, and I like that idea, but I think the toughest part of it is that the college season happens February to May, and then PLL starts that first week in June. Where would you potentially get that draft combine in where it makes sense?
I guess if we're being honest with this, that draft combine can be that last week of May or that first week of June. That's when it could be. Like it can be done. And realistically, the last week of May is a better week to do it. Sure, you're going to have some players coming off of, the tournament or off the championship game. They might choose not to do it or whatever. That's fine. But you have the time to do it. It's right there. 3 or 4 days. Do the combine. Let guys come in. And then they have that weekend to talk to coaches. Oh, okay, this is where we might draft you. This is what we're thinking about, da-da-da-da-da. And that Sunday is the cutoff. Like, granted, it's a very short period. It's not that, short of a period for other sports. But, like, I think that's a realistic period, especially for lacrosse, because like guys know, and like lacrosse doesn't change too much from college to pros. Like those guys are pretty much the size, your senior year or your junior years that you're going to be in the pros. So it's more of a, am I ready mentally, and do I think I can play at this speed? Am I ready to adjust mentally more than it is physically? So it's like that week and a half is enough for these guys. They're 22, 23 years old. After having a few conversations with their parents, their coach, and a prospective coach, they can figure out what they really want to do.
I think the only other difficult aspect of it where you mentioned where it could happen is PLL is going to be in training camp that week. So the 2 options I have here are, because obviously you're going to want your head coaches to go and take in some of the combine at some point. So that's going to take away, moments in training camp there, which is, do you want that to happen? Like from a league perspective, do you want that to happen? Secondly, the flip side is, does the league then say, instead of that happening, we go the route of every other sport that, does combines and stuff, and now these coaches are allowed to hire scouts?
That's what I was going to say is you do it that way. You let them hire scouts. They watch a majority of that so that, head coaches can still be at their practices and training camps and everything. But then you get all your coaches together for the scrimmages. Or, you have your scrimmages staggered throughout the day where the coaches aren't busy so that they can stop in and see the scrimmages. Even if it's not the entire time, they're only watching a half or whatever for their, time's sake. That's all really coaches need to see. Like, granted, some skill work and positional stuff looks good for coaches to see in terms of your footwork and everything, but a coach can watch you for a half in a game and know whether or not you're going to fit into a system and what he needs to do with you to make that happen. So realistically, this could happen if they hire scouts, let them do most of the, scouting throughout the school year as well, because a lot of these coaches are already coaching high school or college, which happens at the same time. So those scouts can go out and coach. It opens up job opportunities within the sport. They're going out to scout during the college school season, and then they get to have that draft combine, and then coaches come in, see the scrimmages, and they can make decisions from there. And with the scouting, you have that all year as well, because that's what other sports have, right? Guys don't normally exercise that draft combine option unless they've been getting talked to by scouts and agents and coaches. So let's do the same thing here. If we have agents and scouts and coaches at this level, they can talk and there's the mediation. Well, you haven't really heard from any coaches or scouts since, week 15 or week 5 of your college season. In your junior year, this probably isn't the year to go about it. Let's wait. Let's train this summer. Let's go next year. We just have to take the same steps that other sports have taken to give these athletes those same liberties.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's not possible. I think it's just a lot of
time crunch. You got to move stuff around.
That, and I think it's just a lot of semantics that have to be worked out.
And
when you are fiscally able to implement it as well, I think is the other big chunk of change there.
If I'm being honest, I love Memorial Day weekend, but we could hypothetically shift all that up.
I agree.
Like a week or two. Really, like 2 weeks. There's no reason why they can't play during the week. They're all out of school. Literally out of school. They're not even taking classes anymore. They're out of school. Yeah. So, why are they only playing on Saturdays and Sundays? Or I think it was Thursday, Saturday is what they were playing during the week. And then the last games were Friday, Monday, or whatever, Saturday, Monday. They could play Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Thursday, Saturday, or whatever you want to do to get it all done. And then have the combine for 2 weeks, 3 weeks before they even get into training.
That makes more sense to me, honestly.
That makes so much more sense.
Time length and everything.
I understand why the NCAA wouldn't do it or whatever, because they're so set in their ways and all of that. But I like that option a lot.
I like that a lot more too. And you know what? You guys can put in the comment section your thoughts on that. Let us know your thoughts on everything we talked about on this episode, especially the Cav trade. We spent a lot of time on that, which rightfully so. It's a big deal. Shout out to Steve for the mention in the NIL deal. We'll link Steve's article in the YouTube description and in the show notes on audio for you guys to check out. Go support him. He does really great work with them covering NIL, and he's a damn good golf podcaster too. So check out the Getting the Whole podcast on our network. But that's all we got for you guys this week. Next week, NLL preview episodes start. We're breaking down the Wild Wild West next week's episode, and it's going to be a doozy of an episode. There's a lot to take away from the West. That's why we're starting with them. There's more teams. There's a lot of change out West. Our defending champion is out West. So we're going to start with the West Division next week. The following week, we're going to break up the East into the old school North Division, which is Buffalo, Rochester, Halifax, Toronto. And then the final preview episode for the NLL season will be the following week, which you guys will be able to listen to on Black Friday. Will be the old school East Division, which is Philly, New York, Albany, Georgia. And then the following week, the NLL is here. We're a month away. A month away from lacrosse being back on our TVs. And we got a big project in the works, but you're only going to get it if you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on the socials. At OTB Laxpod on Twitter, Instagram. Get us to 1,450 followers on Twitter. We'll announce it. You'll be very excited. And get us to 300 subscribers on YouTube. That's when we announce it. Those two things happen, bang. You get DJ and I's top secret super project that we're working on for the NLL. But you got to follow us at OTB Laxpod, Twitter, Instagram. Follow DJ at SCS_next create asterisk to be determined. Stay tuned. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Okay, Bizzle. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. Like we said, with Thanksgiving right around the corner, everybody at the dinner table, tell them to whip out their phones right before you eat, or before you bite into that turkey leg. Take a big old bite of mashed potatoes, whatever it may be. Tell them to subscribe to OTB at the Thanksgiving table. Record a video of your family doing it. It'd be pretty funny. We'll retweet it. We'll post it. And, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. That's where OTB is located in full video form. You get it every single week at OTB Lax Pod. YouTube, Underground Sports Philadelphia, is youtube.com/@ Underground Sports Philadelphia. Subscribe, smash that like button, ring the bell icon, comment down below your thoughts on everything we talked about on this episode. And we're on that road to 1K still for the YouTube channel. Looking to get to 1K so we can take that next step forward on YouTube, doing big-time things. But we need your help to get there. We're 7 away from 300, so make that happen. Let's make that happen this weekend, guys. Come through. Subscribe to the YouTube. Shout out to our sponsors. You've seen them below all episode. Tomahawk Shades, Kenwood Beer, Pickup, Beano Board. New Liverpool Beano Board just dropped this afternoon as we record this on Friday. So go check that thing out. And, of course, PHI Apparel Company. OTB merch is on the way. Go to phiapparel.co and use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off your merch. This has been episode number 246 of the allegedly award-nominated, number 9 ranked NCAA. See, look, we talked NCAA. That's why we're number 9 ranked each. See? I told you. Number 9 NCAA and Shrek ranked podcast. And, of course, viewable on YouTube, Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. Be kind to one another. Have a spine. For Deej, I'm KB. We're getting the heck out of here. Peace.
Peace.